About 2 weeks ago, you were up in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's really interesting what's going on there at the moment. I mean, I think that in short, there is a new Silk Road that is sort of emerging right before our very eyes. I mean, I think China has very clearly stepped into the vacuum. They're starting to invest vast amounts of capital. And when you can really feel the investment on the ground, it's going into, new rail infrastructure, new oil pipelines as well. This is having a really big impact. Uzbekistan, had about FDI of about $12 billion last year. The economy is growing about 6%. They're undergoing a lot of reform. A lot of people think of these as, just the stand countries, but I would sort of say they're sort of the standout stand countries. And part of it is the fact that they're starting to get a lot of capital from places like China as they look to build greater connectivity from China to Europe. So it's a really interesting place in the world right now.
And we're talking about the new Silk Road, right? We're talking about alternative routes for trade as well as for energy, for oil, linking China as well as Europe. So it sounds like, to me at least, Belt and Road, BRI, that's far from dead. I mean, calls for its death have been premature.
I think that's right. And I think, it's interesting. We were sort of talking about oil, and a lot of folks are worried about the price of oil. And I think with respect to the transportation routes, when it comes to geopolitical risks, clearly the route of Russia, clearly the Suez Canal, and maybe soon the Strait of Hormuz is coming into question. And so all China's doing is helping to sort of create a middle corridor where, whether it's the transportation of goods or energy can sort of find its way from China and from Central Asia to the sort of key markets of Europe. So, I do think that this is a really interesting theme. And again, a lot of these countries are growing quite fast. It's a place where a lot of people are not really focused, but you can really feel it on the ground.
I can't really see the geography in my head, Steve, and you're probably better at this than me, right? But is this in any way sort of part of China's way of hedging its Strait of Hormuz risk? Because we've been talking about this for I don't know how many days now, right? The threat to close the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, it's Iran's made it I don't know how many times, but it's never actually happened. But if it were to happen, it wouldn't be great news for China, right? 97% of the oil that Iran produces and ships out goes to China at heavily discounted prices and around skirting Western and U.S. sanctions. So it would seem to me that it would be in China's interest to look for an alternative route to get that oil. Is what you're talking about through Central Asia part of that?
I think it's part of the broader, diversification of oil. I think predominantly a lot of the oil from that China receives more flows through Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan has really built up their pipelines in order to transport their oil to China. So it is part of this greater diversification strategy that we're seeing globally. I think Central Asia plays a vital role. It is an area that was once the global center of all trade. Of course, the naval routes had something to say about that, but I think we're seeing this reemergence at this moment in time as old trade routes, such as that through Russia and some of these through some of these waterways through the Middle East are starting to become into question. And even if a lot of the tensions start to ease, I still think that a lot of countries are now looking for greater redundancies. They no longer want to rely on a single sort of trade route. So I think this middle corridor, this sort of new Silk Road is helping China achieve some of that. And I think it's probably good for the greater world as well.